So a good example of that is I heard this story about a professor who had this class, and he was trying to teach them about following instructions. So he said, it's important for you guys when we're taking a test. They were taking a final exam, which was 50% of their grade. He said, I want you to make sure you follow the instructions on the test. So it was a 1-hour test. They started taking the class. After 5 minutes, a student walked up and handed him his paper. And he's like, oh, thank you. And then the student left. And a couple people looked up and said, I guess he didn't study. I guess he didn't put in the work. And then another student came up, did the same thing. And so 5 students came up in the first 7 minutes of the test and handed in their paper and left. And then the rest of the class, the other 30 students, still worked. So after maybe 45 minutes into the test, somebody said, oh. Then a couple minutes later, he handed in his test. And then one by one, people started handing in their tests, and kind of an uproar happened in the class. So what had happened is the professor on the test, the instructions said, read the full test before starting. Do not start taking the test until you've read through the whole test. So the test had 20 questions, math problems that they had been taking. So the first 19 were similar to the ones they'd been taking all the time. They'd seen homework like it, they'd seen things like it. But the 20th question said, do not answer any of the questions above. Write your name on the line below. Turn in the test with just your name. You are done.
She just read from the bottom up.
Well, they should have read. They were supposed to read the whole thing. The instructions. Right. So the first 5 students, they had read the whole thing. They did it. They turned it in. The rest of the students, they did the test as they went, and they went on and did it. So the moral isn't that you shouldn't do the works. The moral is that the works weren't what they got graded on. So they didn't get graded on the works on that day. So we're graded on faith. We're not graded on the works. So one group, they trusted in their own ability. They trusted in their study and their preparation and their works. And so that's kind of the problem with salvation through works doctrine. Or one of the problems is that, so the second group of students, they handed their test in. When they left the class, they weren't sure whether they passed the test or not. So that's the problem with salvation by works, is you don't ever really know if you pass the test. You don't really know if you're saved. If it's based on the works you do, if it's based on I have to do this and I have to do that, then you're always in a state where you're not sure whether or not you're saved. And so some of those students, they kind of hoped that it was graded on a curve. They said, well, I didn't follow the instructions, but I know Bob and Diane were at that party last night, so I know I did better than them.
Yeah.
And so when we want to look at do salvation by works, we end up focusing on other people and comparing ourselves with other people and judging other people. We say, oh, well, I'm good because I do this, but look at brother so-and-so. He does this and this. What a bad person. You know, I don't do that, though. I'm bad. So when we
compare ourselves to bad. So
right, we compare ourselves to bad, right, instead of comparing ourselves to Jesus.
Right.
We don't compare ourselves to Jesus. We compare ourselves to people that do not as good as us. So salvation by works is faith in works. So when you think you have to, when you get saved by the things you do, you have faith in the things you do, faith in your works. But faith in works is faith in yourself. So if you don't believe that Jesus' death was enough to save us, then what is your faith in? So the question is, was Jesus' death enough?
Yes, it was.
Or just like when I got saved, he wiped away my sins, but now I messed up again, so I'm hoping he'll come back and die again? Or was the first time enough? So his death was sufficient for the sins of the past, of the present,
In the future.
and the future.
Right.
Right. So the problem is we don't, me included, fully accept or understand the extent of God's grace. Because
It's almost too much to bear,
yeah,
to understand it.
it's too much to
Huge.
understand it because we have a concept of right. We want
Right.
things to be righteous. We want things to be just and fair.
Right, yeah.
And so we kind of underneath realize that it's not fair
Right.
that we would get to heaven being how we are.
Right.
And so we don't fully understand it. And if we fully accepted it, then we would want to be righteous. We'd want to do good work because